What would you do if keeping a 6-year-old boy alive meant lying to the most powerful, most violent woman in the kingdom every single day for 6 years inside her own territory? No army to hide behind, no escape route out of the country, just a child who has to be silent at exactly the right moments, and a woman who has to look that same monster in the eye day after day and give nothing away. This isn't a parable. This isn't a moral lesson dressed up to make a point. A queen ordered the execution of her own grandchildren to keep her throne, and one woman with no army and no protection decided that order would not be carried out. To understand what she did, you have to understand who she was up against. Her name was Athaliah, and she wasn't born into Judah's royal line at all. She was the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel. Yes, that Jezebel, rulers of the northern kingdom of Israel. She was married south into Judah for one reason: to seal a political alliance between two kingdoms that had spent generations at war with each other. For years, that's all she was to the historical record. A diplomatic marriage, a peace treaty with a pulse. Then her son, King Ahaziah, was killed. And Athaliah didn't grieve. She moved. She seized the throne for herself, something almost unheard of in this kingdom's history. And to hold it, she gave an order most retellings of this story skip right over. Kill the royal heirs. All of them. Read that again. Not enemy heirs, not rival heirs, her own grandsons. The entire surviving male line of the House of David marked for death in a single afternoon on the order of their own grandmother. Here's why that order mattered far beyond one family. That bloodline wasn't just royal. It carried a promise the kingdom had held on to for 300 years, that David's house would never end. Not be interrupted. Never end. Athaliah came within hours of ending it herself. She nearly succeeded. Her name was Jehosheba, sometimes written Jehoshebeth, and almost nobody outside serious Bible scholarship has ever heard it. Here's the first detail most retellings get wrong, or just leave out entirely. Jehosheba is identified as a daughter of King Jehoram, sister to the murdered Ahaziah. But here's what that doesn't automatically mean. It doesn't mean she was Athaliah's daughter. Most scholars place her as a half-sister to Athaliah's children, born to Jehoram through a different wife, not through Athaliah at all. That single detail changes the entire shape of this story. It means Jehosheba had no blood loyalty to the woman now sitting on the throne. No reason to protect this new regime. No reason to mourn its enemies. And just as important, no reason for Athaliah to ever look at her twice. In a palace where the queen was hunting down anyone who might shelter a surviving heir, the half-sister with no claim of her own was the last person anyone thought to watch. There's a second detail working in her favor, and it's not luck. It's positioning. Jehosheba was married to Jehoiada, the high priest of Judah. That marriage gave her something almost nobody else inside that palace had. Legitimate, unquestioned, everyday access to the temple complex. Not a disguise, not a bribe. A standing reason to be exactly where she needed to be, whenever she needed to be there. A woman with no political threat attached to her name, and a husband who controlled the one building in the kingdom no one would think to search. That access was about to become the only thing standing between an infant and a death sentence. The order has already gone out. Somewhere in that palace, the killing has started. Athaliah's men moving from room to room, carrying out the execution of every royal heir they can find. And among the condemned is a baby, Joash, son of the murdered king. Too young to understand he's already been sentenced to die. The text doesn't soften what happens next, and neither should we. Jehosheba stole him away from among the king's sons who were being put to death. Stole. That's the actual word. Not rescued in some clean, distant sense. Stolen, in the middle of an execution that is actively underway, while it is happening to children around him. Think about the mechanics of that for a second, because it's easy to let this detail slide past in one sentence. and miss what it actually required. She doesn't just grab him and run. She takes his nurse with her, the one person who can keep an infant fed and silent without raising suspicion. Two women moving through a palace crawling with guards loyal to a queen who has just proven beyond any doubt that she will kill her own grandchildren without hesitation. One wrong hallway, one guard who looks a second too long, one cry from the baby at the worst possible moment. That's all it would have taken. First, they hide in a bedroom. Not the temple yet. Somewhere close, somewhere fast, somewhere that buys a few hours of cover while the killing continues elsewhere in the palace. Then, when it's safe enough to move again, she takes him deeper, into the temple itself. And here's the detail that explains why this hiding place actually worked. Why, of all places, this was the one spot in the entire kingdom Athaliah would never think to search. Athaliah was a devoted worshiper of Baal, not a casual one. She'd built her own shrines, installed her own priests, centered her religious life entirely around a god that was not the God of Israel. The temple of Yahweh wasn't just unfamiliar to her, it was beneath her notice, a building she despised for a god she'd spent her life turning away from. She had spies, she had soldiers, she had every reason to be paranoid about hidden heirs, but she never thought to look in the one place her own contempt had already ruled out. Here's where most versions of this story rush forward, skip a sentence, and miss the entire point. Joash isn't hidden for a dramatic afternoon. He isn't tucked away for a tense week while the dust settles. He grows up inside those temple chambers, from a newborn being carried out mid-execution to a 6-year-old boy who has never once seen the sky as anything other than a sliver through a high window. 6 years. Say that number slowly because the text says it almost in passing, and your mind will want to skip past it the same way. 6 years is long enough for a child to learn to walk inside 4 walls. Long enough to learn to talk in whispers before he learns to talk at all. Long enough that the only world he has ever known is small rooms, low voices, and 2 adults who flinch every time footsteps pass too close to the door. He can't cry too loud. He can't be seen near a window. He doesn't yet know why. He's too young to be told the truth, and far too young to be trusted not to repeat it. So he simply lives the rule without understanding it. Stay quiet, stay hidden, stay still. And while that child grows up in the dark, the country keeps turning above him. Athaliah is on the throne, ruling, issuing decrees, sitting in the very palace where she once gave the order that should have ended this boy's life before it started. As far as the kingdom knows, the line of David is finished. There is no whisper of an heir, no rumor to chase down. 6 years of a nation believing the dynasty simply ended. Meanwhile, Jehosheba and Jehoiada are living 2 lives at once, every single day, inside the regime they are quietly working to bring down. By daylight, they're visible, present at temple duties, present at public functions, present in rooms full of people loyal to the woman they're hiding a child from. And just a few rooms away, behind a door that has to look like nothing at all, they are raising a king, not for one tense afternoon, not for one narrow escape, for 6 years. Repeated, day after day, with absolutely no guarantee, at any point along the way, that it would ever amount to anything more than a secret that died quietly with them. Year 7. After 6 years of silence, Jehoiada makes his move. And this is not a desperate, last-minute scramble. This is a plan that has been sitting ready, waiting for exactly the right moment. For years. He brings in the Levites and the palace guards, but not all at once. in rotating shifts, so that no single gathering looks unusual, so that nothing outside the temple walls suggests anything is different from any other day. He arms them with weapons that have been stored inside the temple since the time of King David himself, kept there, untouched, for this. Then he positions every one of them around the building, sealing it off, before a single person outside has any idea what's about to happen. 6 years of patience, followed by a plan executed with absolute precision. Then Joash is brought out. 7 years old now, not the infant who was stolen out of a massacre, but a boy who has spent his entire remembered life behind a door about to step through it for the first time into daylight. That means something. He's crowned. He's handed the covenant scroll, the document that ties this kingdom's kings to the promises made generations before him. And he's presented in front of the assembled guard as exactly what he is. The king. The one everyone believed no longer existed. The noise reaches the palace. Athaliah comes to see for herself what's happening. And what she finds is a child standing where she never imagined a child could stand again, wearing a crown that, by every account she believed, should not exist. She shouts one word: treason. She is the one who planned an execution 6 years ago to prevent exactly this moment. And now, she is the one standing outside, watching it happen, with nothing left to stop it. She's removed from the temple grounds. And she's killed. Let's be honest about what this is, without dressing it up and without flinching from it. This is a coup, planned for 6 years in near total silence by 2 people who never once let their nerve break, and executed, start to finish, in a matter of minutes. Here's what's easy to miss once the coup is over and the drama has settled. Jehosheba appears in scripture for a handful of verses. She's named exactly once. There's no recorded speech from her, not a single line of dialogue, no description of what she felt carrying that infant past guards who would have killed her without hesitation if they'd known what she was holding. The text simply states what she did, in the fewest words possible, and moves on. And she is the entire reason the line of David did not end in a single bloody afternoon. She's not the only one. If you start looking for this pattern, it shows up again and again. Rahab, hiding spies in Jericho with a city about to fall around her. Deborah, stepping into a leadership vacuum no one else would fill. The midwives in Egypt, quietly refusing a direct order from Pharaoh to kill Hebrew infants. Refusing, with no army behind them, simply because they decided they would not do it. Scripture's biggest turning points keep running through women the text barely pauses to describe. Not the figures with long genealogies or detailed character arcs. The ones who show up for one decision, do the thing that needed doing, and disappear from the record almost as quickly as they appeared in it. And that's really the point worth sitting with here. History's most consequential acts aren't always loud. They don't always come with a speech or a battle or a name everyone remembers afterward. Sometimes it's one decision, made quietly, sustained for 6 years without a single person clapping or even noticing, held by someone nobody thought to watch closely enough to stop. So go back to that question I opened with. What would you do? Now you have the answer. And it isn't what most people expect. Jehosheba didn't fight Athaliah with an army. She didn't fight her with a weapon or a speech or a single dramatic confrontation. She fought her with 6 years of nerve, held quietly, day after day, with no one clapping and almost no one watching. And maybe that's the question worth carrying with you longer than this video. Not what you do in one big moment, but what you'd be willing to hold on to, quietly, for years, if you knew it mattered. There are more names like hers buried in these texts. People with one verse, one quiet decision, and an outsized hand in everything that came after. If there's a figure like that you've always wondered about, someone history gave one line and changed everything anyway, tell me in the comments who it is. I'll go dig into them next. And if this is the kind of story you want more of, subscribe, because there are a lot more Jehoshebas waiting to be found.